Hello, and welcome to this week's Movie Math, where we're coming down. It had to happen eventually. It's still pretty good, but we're coming down after two deliriously exciting weekends. Hollywood, living the meme. We are so dead. We are so back. We are so dead. We are so back. Oh, we're deader than ever. We are so back. It's really, basically, this is what the box office looks like the past couple of months. But yes, after a historic Thanksgiving weekend at the box office, things are settling a little bit back down to reality. So we're now able to get a realistic picture of how some of these films are actually going to perform. So let's dig in to a steaming bowl of reality. Some of you aren't going to like the way this goes down. Oh, I don't think Wicked's going to hit $1 billion, but that's okay. We're going to talk about it. But we're going to go in the order of the top 10, where Moana 2 is still number 1. With a 63% drop in its second weekend. Ordinarily, that would be like, a little nerve-wracking. 63, second place. You'd ideally like that to be in the 50th percentile. Frozen 2, for instance, didn't drop like that until its third weekend. Yet thanks to Moana 2 being so hot out of the gate, the two animated princess sequels are tied at around day 12. So that's interesting. You know what else is interesting? Both Elsa and Moana are not technically Disney princesses, yet they are two of the most popular. Is that part of the magic? Is that part of the magic that makes them so beloved? They're certainly also two of Disney's most adventurous heroines. And also, neither one has a love interest. The plot thickens, as Disney says again. The Hollywood's favorite question, can we do it again? Anyway, in just 2 weeks, Moana 2 is at $600 million worldwide. Ooh, baby. It will definitely surpass the original film's box office. And it doesn't have any, so we're going to talk about how far can it go. So another question that Hollywood loves, is always asking itself. But it doesn't have any more major markets to go internationally. And also the songs, they're not great. So I think that could hurt its repeat viewing factor. Although everybody complained about Frozen 2, they said, a lot of fans who loved the original said they didn't care for the sequel, yet that still got to $1 billion. I think when you're at $600 million after just 2 weeks, the odds are pretty good that you're going to join the $1 billion club, but not necessarily guaranteed, because I think a big shadow hanging over this whole conversation, literally shadow, is how much damage Sonic 3 might do, because that's also a family film, as well as friendly fire from Disney itself with Mufasa. Now, Disney loves this mid-December pre-Christmas date, and they usually put a Star Wars or an Avatar movie there, but they don't have one this year. However, those movies would not be such a direct conflict with their Thanksgiving release. They usually have a really strong family release for Thanksgiving, and then a more fanboyish one for Christmas, and they can coexist. I don't know if these two movies can coexist, though. What do you think? A lot of people are like, even Barry Jenkins is saying bad stuff about Mufasa. He's like, I hated making it, and it does not speak to the quality of my work. And everyone's like, uh-oh. I was talking to a friend of mine, and they wondered if maybe Barry Jenkins was trying to do a little damage control before everybody sees this thing. It's like, you never know how it's going to go, Barry. Let it roll. Why say negative stuff when it could be hugely successful, like Moana 2, right? You just never know. Although, where's Lin-Manuel Miranda? He didn't do Moana 2 so he could do Mufasa, and I don't see him doing any press for the movie. What's happening over there? But also, it's worth noting that the next Star Wars movie, not until 2026, what a break, is this Mandalorian and Grogu, which is also very family-oriented. It has a fanboy element as well. If done right, that movie could be quite large. But interestingly, Disney is putting it as a Memorial Day release for 2026, not the pre-Christmas spot. I think because of that family dynamic there. Also, let's not forget that Disney Plus is now a factor, right? Especially for Moana, an IP that was built by Disney Plus. And that might weigh on the box office as well, because people are like, I usually see it a couple of times, but I saw it once or twice, or maybe just even once, and I'll wait for it then to eventually come to Disney Plus, where we can just watch it all day long, like they are apparently doing with Moana and Frozen right now, and Encanto to some degree. I think Encanto fell off a little bit, but also it's one of those huge juggernauts on Disney Plus. No Disney animated film since the pandemic has been able to join the $1 billion club. Remember, Encanto, which to be fair came out during the pandemic, was made a superstar also by Disney Plus. Although also they released a lot of clunkers as of late, which is why Jennifer Lee no longer is the head of Disney Animation. She's still in charge of Frozen, but that's, we'll see. You guys didn't like Frozen 2. Still made $1 billion, but we'll see what happens. So if we're going to be pessimistic, right, Moana 2 could end its run with around, I'd say, $800 million, like Pixar's Coco or the first Inside Out. And that would be very respectable. It would be certainly better than any Disney animated movie, as I just said, since the pandemic, and it would be better than the first film's performance. So that would be good. I really, again, think it all depends on just how strong Sonic 3 and Mufasa are. What do you think? Do you think Moana 2 is guaranteed to hit $1 billion? We'll see. All right, you know who's not hitting $1 billion? Wicked. Let's rip off this Band-Aid. In the end, gravity got to it. Or more accurately, a distinct lack of interest outside of North America. Yes, Wicked, as some of you have been saying, joins the ranks of Beetlejuice 2 and Twisters. We can call it movies that just didn't really click overseas. They didn't make nothing overseas, but they didn't make what they were supposed to. So you see that for most Hollywood movies, their domestic haul is less than 50% of their worldwide total, often less than 40% of their worldwide total, and that is not the case with these films. At this point, Wicked only has 2 big markets left to go. Germany, this coming weekend, and then Japan, which again, as we discussed, does not come until March. That's ridiculous. Japan, though, loved Frozen, and they love Wicked the Broadway musical. So they're a real wild card. They could add as much to 150 to 200 million to the film, but it's such a big gap. Will most of Japan have already sailed the 7 seas at that point? We'll see. And also, it'll come so late, it won't, Universal still gets the money. Although, of course, remember, overseas box office has a lower rate of return than the domestic box office. But, it'll still help Wicked financially, but from a PR perspective, the conversation already will have moved on to that point. Maybe it'll help the chatter and excitement about Wicked Part 2. Universal will take that money, thank you, but we'll see how much it ends up actually being. Although even domestically, I'm surprised that the movie fell so hard in only its 3rd weekend, especially considering that it's still selling out theaters, not just during the week, but even through the weekend. So I think a 3rd weekend drop in the 40s would have certainly been more preferable. This is a little, as I said, I think a final tally of around 600 million worldwide is more accurate at this point, which would still be a profit for Universal, and we have award season to go. The Golden Globe nominations are being announced tomorrow morning. Wicked still has digital and the ancillary market as well. That's playing on airplanes, hotel rooms, all kinds of places. And they've definitely created a new IP. Some of you could say that Wicked has been an IP for over 20 years, but not, I think, beyond the theatric, the Broadway space, Broadway fandom. And they can use this new IP across the Comcast NBC Universal empire, which is quickly growing. So really, 3 things protect Wicked. How relatively cheap it was to make, only $140. They shot them back to back, so the whole thing was about $300 million to make both movies, but that's only $145 a piece. So that's excellent. And also a very good argument for doing more back-to-back shootings instead of have to reassemble the whole team to make a sequel. Also, that it's an awards contender, and it's guaranteed a few nominations, big ones, and probably at least 1 win. I think it has costume design locked. And by the way, these 2 things are both thanks to director John Chu's credit for doing a film for such a good amount of money, and also for this movie could have easily been written off as just like some fluff piece, but I think he did a wonderful job making sure that it stayed awards level caliber. And then, of course, it has so many revenue drivers outside of ticket sales for the movie itself. The soundtrack, which is doing extraordinarily well. The merch, so much merch, tons of merch. To potential in-person experiences, like activations across the globe, and of course, Universal's theme parks. And what do you know? Last year's Wonka also ended at around the 600 million mark. That's very interesting. It had the opposite situation. It was a little stronger overseas than domestic. And I think that both of these movies prove that Disney doesn't have a monopoly on musicals, be they animated or the live action version of those animated musicals. Although Wonka, for some reason, couldn't really be launched as an IP, which is weird because it's perfect to be launched as an IP. Warner Brothers had very little merch for that, very little experiences, and they haven't been able to do much not only for Wonka, but for DC, Dune, or even Mortal Kombat. But they have been able to do that for Harry Potter. But I think because they don't have their own theme parks, they don't have their own empire, really. So it's hard for them to launch and maintain IP beyond movies and shows. And the whole reason Harry Potter has worked to some degree is that Universal is a partner for them in the theme park space, although the Harry Potter store and those kinds of activations are strictly Warner Brothers. But Warner Brothers needs to work on this. Too bad they're so cash poor. And isn't Zazie trying to sell that? Is that still trying to happen? What's going on over there? Let's have some movement in some direction. But they do really have a finance issue. Rumor has it that's why they didn't present at CCXP this very weekend, which is a real shame because nobody backs DC like Brazil. So I think I couldn't find room for the plane ticket. I would think CCXP would pay for the plane ticket for at least one or two people, even if James Gunn had just gone by himself and stood there. I think he would have loved that, and stood there and presented some stuff and just showed that he cared and recognized the Brazilian fandom. I think that would have gone a long way. James Gunn's getting so much out of this. If I were his agent or manager, I'd be like, how much is a plane ticket to Brazil, man? Just pay for it yourself. I think it would have been nice. I don't know if the studio would let somebody go by themselves. They're like, we have to send some PR people with you. But I'm like, okay, send one person with me. I don't know. It's tough. It's a tough situation. Also, I guess you don't want to make enemies at Warner Brothers either. So, but it's a real shame that they were not there. All right. So we'll see. Are you in Brazil? Are you a DC Brazilian fan? Did you go to CCXP? Some of you, when we were talking about when the Superman trailer dropped, I felt so bad. Some of you swore it was going to happen this weekend at CCXP. You just couldn't believe that it wouldn't. And it is odd that it didn't. And I felt particularly bad for you. All right, so then there's Gladiator 2, trailing pretty far behind, which is why last night's SNL sketch, where they turned Gladiator 2 into a musical, was extra hilarious. Funny because it's true. And wow, can Paul Mescal sing and dance? Oh my goodness, he's a revelation. He should be in a musical. And after seeing that fake trailer, I can see the vision of him and Ariana Grande paired together for the Variety Actors on Actors thing this year, while everyone's saying they should be Disney's live-action Hercules and Meg. In fact, after that trailer dropped, now everyone can see it. That's one of the trending things or topics on Twitter today. Although, what is it, Gronk or whatever? Gronk can sometimes get things wrong. But not this. I'm telling you. I think that was in some ways Paul Mescal's audition to get into a big musical, and he was very smart to do that because I think some producer, some studio is going to be like, yoink, because everyone's just going nuts over it. He has such a beautiful singing voice, and he can dance, and he's funny. It just shows how poorly cast he was in Gladiator 2. That is just the entirely wrong type of movie for him. But it got him a really big platform, and it got him in the conversation in a way that he hasn't been to this point. So I think, it was the right move for him, but I hope he never makes a movie like that again. It's just, and maybe he thought he could do it, but now that we've seen it, he clearly can't. All right. Gladiator 2 also took a pretty big tumble in its third weekend, but it's dropping faster than Wicked, and it didn't open as big. And its global box office has now slowed as well. So it's, in fact, under 400 million worldwide. And that's a lot less than a lot of other movies have done this year that were a lot cheaper to make, speaking of budgets. I also think there's a good chance that it gets shut out of the awards race. We'll see what happens with, if anyone's going to be nice to Gladiator 2, it's the Golden Globes. And the first film made more money over 20 years ago, so not counting for inflation, and it won not only a lot of Oscars, but the major ones, Best Picture and Best Actor. I think it's pretty clear at this point that Ridley Scott has lost his mojo, and because I think this should have been a slam dunk. I think, well, not necessarily slam dunk, but it shouldn't have been bad. Some of you like it, but I think that it was lazy. I think one of the best ways to describe Gladiator 2 is lazy. In fact, I think Gladiator 2 owes a lot of its success to being packaged with Wicked and Moana 2 as part of this historic cinematic event. Where does Gladiator 2 end its run? I'll be curious to hear your predictions, but I think it's probably going to be under 450, which is where Wicked is right now. So I don't know why can't we just want all these movies to do well? Some of you were like, Gladiator 2 is going to beat Wicked when they first came out, and Gladiator 2 was stronger out of the gate internationally. But that did not happen. Just like Oppenheimer didn't beat Barbie, although Oppenheimer, of course, did very well and got tons of Oscars and won them. All right, so anyway, but it's great for both movies. All right, so as for the rest of the top 10, Red One is still hanging in there, and depending on how long Amazon can play chicken with releasing it on its streaming service, they could maybe ride the sleigh to 100 million domestic. It's at 163 worldwide so far. Sonic 3 and Mufasa are probably going to KO Red One once they hit on December 20th. Plus, at that point, how many theaters are going to even be left for Red One to play on? Because Gladiator 2 and Wicked and Moana 2 will still be in the space. And Red One's already like on the smallest screens at the multiplex. So it's going to get pushed out. So I think around December 20th is when it's going to have to hit Prime Video. Or maybe early. I would actually drop it on the Friday, to be honest with you, just to give it as many days theatrical as possible. But it could drop on Amazon Prime as early as the 17th. They're going to have to start talking about it pretty soon. But I think they want to give it one more full weekend at the box office. So that's why I like the 20th. You give it one more weekend, then on the Monday, you say, hey, digital on Friday. And I think that works out nicely. That's what I would do if I were Prime Video. We'll see. And while a new Hollywood movie did come out this weekend, it was three other players, one expected player and two unexpected players that made the biggest box office waves. India's Pushpa 2 opened in 5th place with close to 10 million as part of a 90 million global debut. It's a new record, topping the previous record holder for a global debut out of India, 2017's Bahubali, The Conclusion. That's incredible. India's global film presence continues to grow. Any moment now, hopefully, that will mean we'll see some Indian actors coming over to Hollywood. Right? I mean, I would think this would be happening very soon. Back in the day, I thought that Hrithik Roshan should have been Prince of Persia. It was too soon. But hopefully, we'll start to see something along those lines. Then Interstellar re-released in just 165 IMAX theaters and was able to play 6th for the weekend. Did you go? Did you finally hear what Michael Caine says on his deathbed? I'll never forget watching that at the historic Ziegfeld Theater before they closed it down and turned it into a conference center. But when Michael Caine spoke, everybody missed the next couple seconds because the whole theater erupted with whispers of, what did he say? Maybe you're not supposed to know what he says. But I'm sure some of you Nolan fans will say that's the case. But Nolan, he does have a history with bad sound mixes. However, there's no denying that he is the new Spielberg, like an intellectual kind of version of Spielberg, although it took a long time for him to get his flowers from the Academy as well. But his name alone has significant pull with audiences. That's incredible. Very, very impressive. And Crunchyroll released an anime stateside for 7th place, and then there was the new Hollywood movie Y2K from A24. Why didn't the movie hit? Too crowded a frame? Too many horror movies? Director Kyle Mooney from SNL, not one of the most popular SNL performers. He does have his fans, though. And maybe Rachel Zegler? We'll see. But this was a swing and a miss for A24's efforts to branch out into more commercial films. I think they'll keep trying, and I would encourage them to. Civil War did very well, just too bad it was a crappy movie. But I think they can do it. But I don't know. I never thought Y2K would have done well. So hopefully they do a little better job with some of their purchasing going forward. They don't really produce films themselves over there, I don't believe. Maybe this was one of them. All right, rounding out the top 10 is a live religious concert event, followed by Best Christmas Pageant Ever. It's been neck and neck with Heretic the whole time, but it's the one that remained the longest in the top 10. And it has managed to climb to $34 million off of just a $10 million budget, a small but badly needed win for Lionsgate. Another new release, Werewolves, failed to even make the top 10, starring Mr. Frank Grillo. You know, whoever's in charge at DC for some reason, they like to do fanboy casting instead of like casting legit actors. Why? Why do they do it? It's crazy to me. All right, over on streaming, starting with Nielsen for early November, alas, The Penguin, even with its series finale, speaking of DC, did not make the charts. I swear, DC is cursed because The Penguin is a great show. Although I don't think, just like Andor, I don't think it was designed to perform in a commercial way, which is a shame. Never forget to put on your business hat, particularly when you're working in the IP space. So it never, ever was able to chart. And, HBO had compared it to The White Lotus in terms of viewership. But The White Lotus, when it wrapped, it charted. The Penguin did not. But, silver lining, The Penguin just got a bunch of Critics' Choice TV nominations, and we'll see how it does with the Golden Globes tomorrow, which is film and television nominations. But from a viewership perspective, it ain't good. Now, obviously, it's an acquired show because it's from HBO, so these aren't its complete viewership numbers. There's still some viewership locked in the HBO space, not the streaming space on Max. But you know what? Other shows that have the same exact situation managed to chart. From House of the Dragon to The Last of Us to even smaller shows like The White Lotus. As for the shows that did chart, Netflix still dominates the overall chart. Nice to see The Diplomat getting some love. I don't know if it's going to go beyond season 3, but it's such a good show. I'm so glad I've turned some of you onto it. While Hulu is doing very well with acquired shows. But on that note, yikes, only 3 of the top 10 shows on streaming overall are current original new shows. Oh my gosh. Over on the originals chart itself, Agatha dropped significantly after wrapping up last week, which is not unusual. Shows usually fall off a cliff once they're done. And as we said last week, Agatha did enjoy its biggest surge in viewership numbers thanks to people binging and watching the 2-part season finale. But I think it is nice that it didn't totally fall off of the chart, the originals chart, after finishing its run. Most shows don't return after the finale. So this, and Agatha won't be here next week, but this is, and it's barely here. So this is like a small plus. And Paramount Plus continues to slowly but surely build its audience online, not just with Tulsa King, which has been strong for weeks now, but the new season of Lioness is also doing very well. A lot of you are always like, Grace, why don't you talk about Lioness? Here we go. Zoe Saldana is having a fantastic year. Good for her. Then with movies, she's never gotten enough credit for being, of course, part of Avatar and Guardians of the Galaxy. So it's really great to finally see her front and center in this kind of way. Then she's probably going to get Oscar nominated as well and Golden Globe nominated tomorrow. Then with if not, it will be quite the snub. Then with movies, Despicable Me 4 finally hit Peacock. Ooh, they really stretched that out. I'm sure it was very effective from a financial perspective. That was a July release. And it did very well. But overall, Netflix is dominating here as well, thanks to their deal with Sony, holiday movies, and that spicy Martha Stewart documentary. She's still got it. I'm all here for Martha Stewart's spicy era. Then over on Netflix's charts, new graphics, by the way. Fancy graphics! And it seems the secret is out, as Lindsay Lohan has a massive hit with her new Christmas movie, one of 3 new holiday flicks from Netflix in the top 10. And the animated movie Spellbound also got a nice bump in its first full week on Netflix's charts. Over on shows, true crime continues to be quite popular, but that's a very nice number 2 debut for Coleman Domingo, giving him his first commercial hit in a leading role. That's very good for him. That's excellent for him. And while Arcane Season 2 has been soft, both Season 2 and Season 1, speaking of shows that have wrapped, they're still in the top 10, even though the show finished airing new episodes last week. So that's good for Arcane. Arcane is done, but League of Legends has said there will be more animation. Thank goodness! I hope it's a little bit less rushed than Arcane Season 2 clearly was, because in my opinion, it didn't get good until the very last 3 episodes. Finally, on digital with Apple, it's a Clint Eastwood Christmas with Juror number 2 debuting at number 1. And look, that amazing Clint Eastwood collection for just $10. Treat yourself to an early Christmas present because considering the movies included in that bundle, that is an incredible deal. And despite the new competition and all the holiday movies that are starting to surge, Conclave and The Substance are still holding strong, which hopefully bodes well for how they fare in tomorrow's Golden Globe nominations. Speaking of the Golden Globe nominations, yes, they're tomorrow. They're going to be airing at 5:15 a.m. Pacific, 8:15 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, bright and early, I believe on Paramount Plus. And they're going to be, again, the nominations for both film and television. And we'll be going over them in a live stream at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time to give some of you a chance to wake up and also for me to prepare the graphics. So be sure to join me again tomorrow, Monday, at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time to go over those Golden Globe nominations. We'll have fun. It's a wild award season, so it should be very interesting. It's anybody's game at this point. But with tomorrow, the picture will start to come into focus. Then as for this coming weekend, Craven finally hits theaters, but it's expected to only open with a 2 in front of it, which means Moana could conceivably still stay at number 1. That would be so embarrassing for Craven. We'll be talking about it. Along with Warner Brothers' animated Lord of the Rings movie, while awards contenders September 5th and Nickel Boys both open in limited release. On Digital Tuesday, this is crazy. Look, Venom drops right before Craven. Will that help or hurt the film? I would think hurt it, because you can see another Sony Spider-Man-less movie that was pretty well received at the end of the day for a much lower price point. That's nuts. I think they feel it's going to be like a combo pack, but I think that's a huge mistake. All right, made me snoot a little bit. It was so ridiculous. All right, along with also Heretic, small things like these, and what do you know? The best Christmas pageant ever. Heretic's like, get away from me. Stop dodging me, man. All right, as for streaming movies, Netflix drops Maria on Wednesday and then Carry On, a Christmas thriller, on Friday. Finally, with some pretty significant star power. All right, finally, as for shows, I love Taron Egerton and Jason Bateman. I wish they were both doing better. Jason Bateman's doing pretty well. I don't know why Taron Egerton just isn't taking off. The man's so talented. All right, he can sing and dance too, man. All right, Paul Mescal might have come in and stolen his thunder at this point. All right, finally, as for shows, the Great British Baking Show Holidays starts tomorrow on Netflix, Secret Level on Prime Video Tuesday, all episodes of Dream Productions spinning off of Inside Out on Disney Plus on Wednesday, No Good Deed on Netflix on Thursday, and then on Friday, Dexter, Original Sin on Paramount Plus. An origin story for Dexter. Plus Christian Slater is on this show as well. You know, I gotta tell you, he's really gotten a new career. He's really refreshed his career with streaming shows. And more often than not, he makes pretty good choices. So even though I've never seen a Dexter episode in my life, I'm kind of interested now. All right, so do you think I should watch it? All right, but it would have to be after the holidays because I'm in Christmas mode right now. All right, so that's this week's Movie Math. What have you been watching? What do you plan to watch? And how well do you think Craven will do in theaters? Do you think it might not open at number 1? All right, share those thoughts down below. Subscribe today. And of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.